This training provides information on applying the reasonable and prudent parent standard that caregivers are required to use when making certain decisions on behalf of children in their care. The information is provided for caregivers and caseworkers. The training includes some instruction that is specific to caseworker functions. Caregivers should be aware that some sections of the training are applicable to caseworkers only.
Hello, I'm Sheila Poole, Acting Commissioner for the New York State Office of Children and Family Services. Thank you for participating in today's training, supporting normative experiences and applying the reasonable and prudent parent standard. Our goal is to provide you with information on the application of the reasonable and prudent parent standard, provide guidance on meeting the related mandates of federal and state law and OCFS regulations, and provide considerations for caregivers when applying the standard. The reasonable and prudent parent standard allows children to participate in normative experiences by empowering caregivers to make day-to-day decisions for the children in their care and to apply the same thoughtfulness and considerations as they would when making decisions for their own children. Research indicates that the more children are exposed to positive resources and experiences, the more likely they are to thrive in childhood and adolescence and become successful adults and engaged citizens. This is the first of several trainings for applying the reasonable and prudent parent standard. As you apply the standard with children, youth, and young adults in care, I encourage you to contact OCFS with suggestions, concerns, and lessons learned that should be shared with caregivers throughout the state. We at OCFS are learning with you, and we seek your assistance in developing additional trainings that are responsive to your experiences when applying the standard. Applying the reasonable and prudent parenting standard will be challenging, and this important work requires us to partner and coordinate our efforts both within our offices and with you. We look forward to continued partnership in this ongoing effort, and I thank you for the very important work you do every day to support the safety, permanency, healthy development, and well-being of children, youth, and young adults in New York State.
Families face many challenges. When parents are not able to provide the safe and healthy environment a child needs, caregivers like you step in to provide vital support. This includes providing children with opportunities to participate in age and developmentally appropriate experiences, just like kids who are not in foster homes or congregate care. We call these normative experiences. We know that the more positive and normative experiences we can provide for young people in care, the more likely they will be able to navigate childhood and adolescence and develop into healthy adults. The purpose of this training is to share information with you, foster parents, congregate care staff, caseworkers, case planners, and case managers in local districts and voluntary agencies about efforts to support normative experiences by applying the reasonable and prudent parent standard. After participating in this training, you will be able to define the reasonable and prudent parent standard and normative experiences, summarize key concepts of the reasonable and prudent parent standard, describe how the standard can be applied when deciding on a child or youth's care or participation in activities, identify what information is needed to prepare for a permanency hearing for youth who have another planned permanent living arrangement or APLA permanency planning goal, and recognize the issues around liability involved with making reasonable and prudent parenting decisions for children and youth in foster care. The mandate to apply the reasonable and prudent parent standard originated from the federal Preventing Sex Trafficking and Strengthening Families Act, which President Obama signed into law on September 29, 2014. One of the primary purposes of the act is to improve the safety, permanency, and well-being outcomes of children and youth involved with the child welfare system. Section 111 of the act, titled Supporting Normalcy for Children in Foster Care, requires states to support normative experiences for children by implementing the reasonable and prudent parent standard. As part of this federal law and in accordance with OCFS regulations, which went into effect September 1, 2015, there are terms that you should know. The first is the definition of caregiver, which will be used throughout this training. Caregiver is the foster parent with whom the child has been placed or a designated employee of a child care facility, including the institution, group residence, group home, agency boarding home, or supervised independent living program in which the child has been placed. The second term is the reasonable and prudent parent standard. The standard is characterized by careful and sensible parental decisions that maintain the health, safety, and best interests of the child in foster care, while at the same time encouraging the emotional and developmental growth of a child. These are the standards that a caregiver must use when determining whether to allow a child in foster care to participate in extracurricular, enrichment, cultural, and social activities. The third term is age or developmentally appropriate. This is defined as those activities or items that are generally accepted as being suitable for children of the same chronological age or level of maturity, or that are determined to be developmentally appropriate for the child based on the cognitive, emotional, physical, and behavioral capacities that are typical for an age or age group. In the case of a specific child, age or developmentally appropriate activities are those activities or items that are suitable based on that child's developmental stage with respect to his or her cognitive, emotional, physical, and behavioral capacities. The next term is normative experiences. There are many definitions of this term. It is generally accepted that normative experiences are age and developmentally appropriate activities and opportunities that promote healthy cognitive, social, emotional, physical, and educational development of children, youth, and young adults, regardless of their placement. This also includes activities and opportunities that assist in developing critical life skills, similar to those which are offered to young people who are not in care. These normative experiences may include participating in school clubs and sports, attending summer camp, sleeping over a friend's house, dating, getting a driver's license, volunteering in the community, and working at a part-time job. Research indicates the more exposure to positive resources and experiences children and youth have, the more likely they're able to develop a greater sense of self, be better able to cope with trauma and adverse experiences, build and strengthen resiliency, develop and maintain positive, healthy, and long-lasting relationships, pursue post-secondary educational and career opportunities, sustain a job, and become engaged citizens. While applying the reasonable and prudent parent standard is important for supporting normative experiences, the standard is also connected to other critical components of the federal and state legal standards also involving foster children, specifically preventing and responding to child victims of sex trafficking, children missing from foster care, and supporting a successful transition to adulthood. The reasonable and prudent parent standard must be applied to each of these areas when making decisions on how to respond to and support foster children who may be at risk of or have experiences with sex trafficking, have run away or have been abducted from care, or are transitioning out of foster care. For more information on the various components of the law, refer to the Strategic Planning and Policy Development page on the OCFS website. Some caregivers have already been applying the reasonable and prudent parent standard. In these instances, local districts and voluntary agencies need to review and update their policies to comply with federal mandates and OCFS regulations. Local districts and voluntary agencies not currently applying the standard must implement the standard immediately. Although the application of the reasonable and prudent parent standard is new, there are areas within existing practice in which the standard may be already implemented or can easily be applied. A starting point for applying the standard is when a case manager or case worker begins to gather information to complete the Family Assessment and Service Plan, or FASP, and the Service Plan Review, or SPR. Completion of the FASP serves as one of the first opportunities to engage the birth or adoptive parents, guardian, or prior caretaker. The FASP is specifically designed to support a family-focused approach to casework and is required within 30 days of the child's removal from the home. Information gathering for the initial FASP can serve as a critical first step to planning and decision-making. In support of the standard, caseworkers and case managers can use this opportunity to engage, where appropriate, the birth or adoptive parent, guardian, or prior caretaker. This is the individual who cared for the child before he or she came into foster care, perhaps someone like a grandmother. Engage these people in discussions regarding the daily decisions and regular activities of the child. If possible, you'll jointly come to an agreement on ongoing participation on things to minimize interruptions in the child's life. Throughout this training, whenever we refer to consulting with or engaging a parent, guardian, or prior caretaker, we mean only in those situations where it's appropriate to do so. In cases where parental rights have been surrendered or terminated, or there are safety concerns, or the parties are not available, such consultation or discussion need not to be part of the decision-making process. Conversations may include agreement on continued participation in extracurricular activities, travel for school trips, curfew, and frequency of haircuts and hair maintenance. While the caseworker or case manager is getting information to complete the FASP, the birth or adoptive parent has the chance to express preferences and give feedback on efforts to support the child's safety and well-being. Please refer to your handout package, Attachment A. It contains questions the caseworker or case manager may want to ask the birth or adoptive parent, guardian, or prior caretaker and child, if it's age and developmentally appropriate, about day-to-day activities and participation in normative experiences. The initial FASP is completed within a short time frame after a child is removed, so caregivers may need further information to make informed decisions. The comprehensive and reassessment, family assessment, and service plans serve as additional opportunities to practice the reasonable and prudent parent standard. At these times, partnership should be encouraged between the caregiver and, where appropriate, the birth or adoptive parent, guardian, or prior caretaker, child, caseworker, and case manager, through the review of previous decisions and development of new and additional agreements regarding the healthy development and well-being of the child. Another opportunity for implementing the reasonable and prudent parent standard is during the Service Plan Review, or SPR. One of the purposes of the Service Plan Review is to strengthen the engagement and involvement of children, parents, and foster parents in case planning to resolve child welfare issues. As local districts and voluntary agencies implement the standard, the SPR serves as an opportunity for shared parenting through engagement and collaboration with the birth or adoptive parent, the guardian or prior caretaker, caregiver, case worker, or case manager, the child, if he or she is at least 10 years of age or older, and up to 2 other individuals the youth might identify to be part of the planning team. This applies to youth who are age 14 and older. Everyone should discuss and agree on age and developmentally appropriate activities for the child. These include things such as travel with the school or caregiver, haircuts, curfew, dating, sleepovers, internet use, and other information important to supporting the healthy development and well-being of the child. When applying the reasonable and prudent parent standard, you are not expected to get permission from each case planning team member for the child to participate in all day-to-day activities, such as bike riding, school field trips, and hanging out with friends after school. You are encouraged to apply the reasonable and prudent parent standard when making such determinations. It is recommended that you apply the standard and, where appropriate, engage birth or adoptive parents, the guardian or prior caretaker, caseworker or case manager, and other members of the case planning team when activities are outside of the typical daily activities and may include some risks, such as participation in a school sport or driving a car. Please refer to your handout package and see Attachment B for questions and considerations a caregiver may want to ask or explore prior to making a decision. The ongoing interaction that occurs due to the completion of the FASP allows the birth or adoptive parent with parental rights, guardian or prior caretaker, caregiver, child, and caseworker or case manager to regularly communicate, participate in shared parenting, and make decisions collaboratively as opportunities and challenges emerge. In addition to being a catalyst for shared decision making, completing the family assessment and service plan review are also opportunities for case consultation and planning in preparation for the permanency hearing. Federal and state law mandate that at each permanency hearing for a youth with a permanency planning goal of another planned permanent living arrangement, or APLA, the local district must document and demonstrate to the court that the youth has been supported in his or her participation in normative experiences. This includes promoting ongoing and regular participation in age and developmentally appropriate activities and keeping a record of the caregiver's application of the standard. This also includes the steps taken to ensure that the foster child's foster parent or child care facility is following the reasonable and prudent parent standard. Caseworkers, case planners, and case managers must document information regarding the reasonable and prudent parent standard, shared parenting and decision making, and participation in normative experiences in fields within the permanency hearing, status of the child, adjustment, and functioning sections in the statewide automated child welfare information system known as Connections, once these become available. In the meantime, caseworkers, case planners, and case managers should document information in the Family Assessment and Service Plan review, and case progress notes. It is also important to document your decision making, including conversations with parents, guardians, prior caretakers, caseworkers, and others. For caregivers who do not have access to Connections, such as foster parents, we recommend that you maintain a notebook to record your contacts and discussions with others on applying the reasonable and prudent parent standard in relation to a particular child. You should also keep track of other steps you've taken for the safety of the child, such as the purchase or securing of safety equipment for a particular activity, like a bicycle helmet for biking or shin guards for soccer. The application of the reasonable and prudent parent standard is not limited to the completion of the FASP, SPR, and permanency hearing. A wide range of opportunities for applying the standard exists within practice. Caseworkers and case managers are encouraged to promote the use of the standard during all interactions with caregivers, birth or adoptive parents, guardians, or prior caretakers, and children. At the core of applying the reasonable and prudent parent standard is knowing the child and making decisions on a case-by-case basis. As part of child-centered planning, communicate as appropriate with everyone who is part of the child's life, the caseworker, birth or adoptive parent, guardian, or prior caretaker, and with the child. Reviewing the child's health history provided to you is important to avoid a particular choice that may be dangerous or inadvisable. For example, if you are aware that a child has a history of concussions, you should seek advice from the child's healthcare provider as whether playing a contact sport is in the child's best interests. The important thing to remember is that there is not one decision that is good for every child. Permitting a child to participate in an activity is also a delicate balance between responsibilities and privileges. For example, if a child is failing a class, you may decide that the child is not permitted to participate in social activities, like going to the movies with friends, until the child's grades have improved. Applying the reasonable and prudent parent standard allows you to support the cognitive, social, emotional, physical, and educational development of a child as you would your own children by providing guidance, support, setting behavioral expectations, and establishing age and developmentally appropriate boundaries. To individualize the response to a child's participation in normative experiences, local districts, voluntary agencies, and caregivers should consider the child's age and development before making a decision. The developmental and well-being needs of a young child, a school-age child, an adolescent, and a young adult are all different. When applying the reasonable and prudent parent standard, the unique needs of the chronological and developmental age should be part of the decision-making process. For instance, allowing a child to stay overnight at a friend's home will vary depending on the child's age and developmental capacity. Let's take a moment to consider what we know about child growth and development. From birth until about 5 years old, our early experiences impact lifelong health and learning. Research indicates that for young children to meet their full potential, they need a safe, stable home that promotes their cognitive and emotional development. This includes bonding with a responsive and nurturing caregiver and having access to skill-building opportunities so the child can learn how to cope with adversity, adapt to his or her surroundings, and regulate his or her emotions. In applying the standard, you are able to promote healthy development by supporting a bond between a nurturing adult and young child. This includes, where appropriate, encouraging the birth or adoptive parent to talk and play with the child, and supporting shared parenting by providing the birth or adoptive parents with the opportunity to make decisions for their children while in foster care, such as hairstyles and haircuts. You can also identify and participate in skill-building opportunities with the child, such as play dates, playtime at home and in the park, reading books, and talking and singing with the child. For school-age children between 6 and 12 years old, this developmental time frame is focused on reinforcing a sense of self by talking about feelings, showing pride in accomplishments, striving for independence, developing and testing personal values and beliefs, and learning to distinguish between reality and fantasy. Children of this age are also exploring connections with peers and other adults, like coaches and teachers, to further build knowledge, skills, and beliefs or mindsets. And applying the reasonable and prudent parent standard, consider enrolling the child in activities he or she is interested in, or introducing the child to new activities. As part of the standard, where appropriate, the birth or adoptive parent, guardian, or prior caretaker should be engaged in the decision-making about the child's participation in activities. For youth ages 13 to 17, adolescence is a challenging developmental time. And for a youth in foster care, this is made even more difficult when trying to balance the phases of adolescence and the transition into young adulthood with finding a safe and permanent home that supports the tough and often bumpy journey through the teenage years. During this phase, youth are eager to think and act independently, learn their interests and talents, experiment and take risks while practicing independent decision-making. Connections with peers play a significant role during this developmental phase as a young person tries to understand him or herself in relation to the surrounding world. In applying the reasonable and prudent parent standard in your role as caregiver, you'll support the youth in using logic, reasoning, and observation to solve problems and make decisions. You can also cultivate independent living skills regardless of the youth's permanency goal by modeling positive adult behaviors like responsibly managing money and credit. You'll need to talk with the young person about interests, goals, and steps to achieve goals, as well as encouraging and permitting participation in school and other social activities. Allow for the youth to safely take age and developmentally appropriate risks, such as driving a car, taking public transportation alone, running for student council, getting a driver's license, or a part-time job. Help the young person learn more about adolescent development, For example, the physical and emotional changes that occur during puberty, and healthy sexual identity and behavior, including responsibilities, choices, and consequences. Your efforts to implement the reasonable and prudent parent standard with young adults in foster care who are between the ages of 18 and 21 will be a bit different, as these young people are legally adults and have the ability to leave foster care at any time they choose. In these cases, the young adult should be supported to make decisions and sharpen his or her independent critical thinking skills to prepare for adulthood. This includes providing a safe space for the young adult to learn from successes and failures, supporting the young adult to advocate for him or herself, providing help when needed, supporting the youth in long-term planning, and assisting the young adult in thinking about and being accountable for his or her actions and the consequences.